Chapter 54. I likewise ripped off my metahuman collar with a truly gleeful smile, but then after a moment of thought I realized I didn't need to play the whole go along with the riot plan. I already got the info I needed, and now I could just pin this whole thing on Hugo Strange, the mole in the prison that was attached to the light, and could crack open their existence. Anyway, who sent us these threads anyway? I asked, fishing for information, and the frankly stupid teen villains confirmed my foreknowledge. Yeah, that dumbass psyche dude is working for my father, so he sent these thermal microfiber clothes so that way all the other prisoners could help us escape and not get turned into a popsicle. Icicle Jr. boasted, and then with his confession being recorded by my earpiece I finally got a response from the League. Lord, begin to take down the prisoners from within. The League has already surrounded the prison with Superman flying above, Green Arrow patrolling the surroundings, and I am going to Waller's office to turn back on the metahuman collars. I heard Batman speak from my earpiece, and then with a sigh, I turned to Icicle Jr. Sorry Bunky, but it's the end of the road, I said before I slapped the ice-themed villain in both of his ears to stun him before I put him in a necklock and just choked him out by using my wind manipulation to gently pull all the air out of his lungs and body with how I subdued him. Shoo. Go to sleep, Bunky. I will put you to bed by time just like your daddy never did. I said in a parody of being gentle as Icicle Jr. finally suffocated and went slack in my arms. I then did just as I said I would and put him in the bottom bunk of our shared cell and even tucked the young man in before I left my cell to begin opening a can of whoop-ass on all the metahumans rioting throughout the prison. And for the most part, the prisoners weren't a threat to me, with me not holding back my powers much at all. I shattered limbs, I made bones poke through their skin, I just generally reminded the villains that there will be order and I was going to be the iron fist that enforced that order. You are ruining everything, brat. Icicle Sr. roared, seeing me smash Mr. Freeze's head into the ground so hard that his containment glass bubble shattered, making the man freeze his own head solid rather than die due to the room's more normalized temperature. Get in your cells, all of you. I yelled at the group of some 30-plus villains with God knows what powers and metahuman abilities. Get back in your cells or you will need to be wheeled back into your cells. I warned them for the last time. Fuck you, brat, we have literally 30 villains here, not even Superman would like to fight with all of us. Icicle Sr. roared, trying to hype up his group, but he was only answered by me skipping through space to be right in front of him, and then I visibly took in a bunch of air but as Icicle Sr. and the other villains went to hit me with various elemental abilities and such. The whole group was met with a biblical howling wind that smashed them all into the wall of the prison they had been attempting to break down that was behind the group. You guys want more? I asked, seeing some of the more durable villains standing back up from being thrown like that, but there were still some villains who were obviously hurt from being smacked by the hand of God in the form of a wall of wind and then crashing into the concrete wall behind them. Batman, to Lord, the collars will be activating in 1 minute, they had to reset the system that controls it. Batman's voice reached me. Affirmative, I have the men's wing of the prison in control, but I am unaware of what is happening on the women's side, I said, touching the side of my ear as I ducked under a wild punch from one of the large, mutated villains that charged me. The women's side of the prison is well in hand. Black Canary has subdued the inmates within with her canary cry, Batman explained, and with a grunt, I danced past the lunging tackle of another villain but grabbed said lunging villain to use as a weapon to beat upon the other villains as I swung the man by his foot to beat all these villains with another villain. You all lay down on the ground or I am going to keep beating on you. I said, honestly feeling a bit bad as these villains were the chump change of the DC villain galleries. I mean, what could Riddler, Penguin, or anyone that wasn't a Kryptonian do to me? These idiots weren't a threat to me in the slightest, as their elemental effects couldn't match Galatia's laser vision, and their simple flames, lightning, high-pressure water, or ice did jack all. Stop swinging me, bro, I want to go back to my cell, blah. The villain I was using as a sort of nunchuck to beat upon other villains cried and vomited all over the floor. Wordlessly I dropped the man into his own pile of puke, and I looked at Icicle Sr., who was finally getting back to his feet after being in the center focus of my wind attack that threw him into the wall at such speeds that the man left an imprint of his body shape in a reinforced concrete wall. But before the man could say anything, he received a healthy dose of the crippling amount of electricity through all the inmates that congregated around him that still had their collars all arcing with the highest setting to the collar's output of juice. Fine. We surrender. Icicle Sr. cried out, lying down on the ground after seeing the majority of the inmates who couldn't remove their own collar all laid out, paralyzed, still twitching from the collars, shocking the hell out of them all. Once everyone was secured back into their cell, I was let out of the male wing of the prison with Batman, Black Canary, and Green Arrow all waiting for me. Good job, Lord. Batman surprisingly grunted before whirling around. Follow me, we need to speak with Waller about her little traitor. Batman growled with his fists audibly creaking in their leather, and I didn't blame him as the damned prison was home to a couple thousand inmates and with most of them being horribly violent offenders. It was certain that should all of them escape today, several thousand people likely would get hurt, or even die before they all got recaptured, if the villains didn't go deep underground so no one could find them at all. Once we got to Waller's office, Batman didn't even bother knocking or telling the guards to move. He merely kicked down Waller's door as he strode into her office, and I had to admire the balls on the man to ignore the guards now armed with laser rifles who were now aimed at his back and were about to pull said trigger on a caped crusader, but I was going to have none of that. Nope, you two can be useless as per usual, I said, crushing the two obviously highly expensive laser rifles in my hands before walking into the office as Batman and Waller had a stare-off with one another, and I saw how Hugo Strange the Mole was sitting tensely in one of the room's side seats. You have a mole. Someone who gave the entire prison top-of-the-line thermal-regulating prison outfits, with such outfits costing at least $5,000, who could have the money and pull to get such outfits into the prison under such short notice. Who is your right-hand man? Batman yelled, and Waller's face tightened as her eyes flickered to the psychiatrist who helped her run the very prison. Then, just to prove the point, Batman leaned away from Waller and then tapped onto his wrist computer, and an audio file began playing with Icicle Jr.'s voice clearly speaking. Yeah, that dumbass Psyche dude is working for my father, so he sent these thermal microfiber clothes so that way all the other prisoners could help us escape and not get turned into a popsicle. With how Icicle Jr. was just inducted into the prison, and having heard the young man speaking during the short speech Waller gave us at the entrance of the prison when we all entered, how could she forget the teen's voice after not even a full day had passed? Strange. This goes beyond merely abetting a criminal. This is a federal prison holding national threats to its security. You can look forward to being tried for treason, you damned fool. She snarled at Hugo Strange, who merely nodded and smiled as he bowed to the black woman. I accept my fate and won't resist, don't worry. He said, holding out his hands to Green Arrow, who was standing beside the man in case he did anything. Wait. I have a question for him. Who gave you the thermal suits? You obviously have a strong backing if you can get millions of dollars in specialty thermal wear that can no-sell cryomancy abilities that the Freeze family were using. I said, making Batman's eyes focus on Strange, who lost his easygoing attitude. I suggest Wonder Woman use her lasso of truth, or we use other forms of information gathering to see who is helping destroy your career, Waller, I said quickly, seeing the thick-set woman about to vehemently refuse to have the man questioned, and the sight made me wonder if Waller already had some skeevy shit in her basement that Strange knew. Lord, they should have it in hand now, let's get going. They are just going to be posing and being macho. Black Canary said as Batman and Waller went back to staring each other down to see who would budge, as such information was vital in pointing out the light's existence, and I was assured Waller had some bullshit going on in this prison if she didn't leap to having the man interrogated. Fine, I want some real food anyway, I spoke as I followed the heroine towards the exit of the prison.